we rode up here with Jim and Sharon yesterday, of course, and then we had dinner with him last night. And I'm sitting there with him. He's got one of these voices that's kind of, in fact, I said, you got like a voice for radio, or something. And the people always told me I have a face for radio, but he has a voice for radio. But I was thinking, I could just hear him say, "And now, ladies and gentlemen, at center stage, for your listening pleasure." Yeah, he's got that voice for it. It's great. Something I might mention, if you're interested, one of the things we started, Gene and I, for a number of years, we've been doing various conferences that we do, and one of which is this conference that we're doing here in Ephesians with you. But one of the things that we noticed years ago is that oftentimes many of the people that you wish would come to the conference, they don't come to these conferences. Oftentimes the people that come to these things, they're coming, they enjoy each other in the fellowship. Are you going? Yeah, we're going too. But a lot of the people that come and they think, well, they don't want to come, they think we're going to get beat up. We're going to get accused and told how bad we are, and they feel guilty. And oftentimes the ones that are kind of going through seasons of difficulty in their marriage, they tend to shy away. And maybe you know somebody like that, some of your friends or children or neighbors or other people around. And so what we did is that we have made up just, a little USBs that, like this it says marriage on it, things that goes, but it's just a USB of the conference. And that we do here. It's got, a number of sessions. Actually has another conference on it as well. There's 2 conferences on this. We do another one periodically of character studies of couples in the Bible, like lessons from Adam and Eve and David and Bathsheba. A lot of people don't think about their marriage. The lessons from that, Joseph and Mary and others. But it's on a USB drive. And I think they're usually 25, but when we do a conference, it's just it's a regular USB drive. It just goes into your computer if you'd like just a USB. Then you download it or you play it from your car or wherever, kind of works on that. And then I just brought just a few other ones. We have one that has, like Gene has probably 16, 17 character studies on women of the Bible, and I have another one that I do the entire Bible on it, and Genesis to Revelation of my studies through the years. It has 970 on it, but anyway, if you're interested, maybe I just brought only just a handful of them, but there we are. So Ephesians chapter 5. Let's get back to that. And picking it up here, actually I'll just go back to verse 18 and down where just to read from last night. And be not drunk on wine, where is excess, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to yourselves psalms and hymns, spiritual songs, singing, and making a melody in your heart unto the Lord, giving thanks always for all things unto God and the Father, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of God. Wives, submit yourself unto your own husbands, as unto the Lord. That's as far as we will get today. Verse 22. I'm sure you all got up this morning quite excited for this verse. And it's really one of my best Bible studies I ever give. Verse 22, I love it. No, but the thing here fundamentally, just to back up a little bit, is that the most important thing that there is, the key to everything in our life, our relationship with God. God's designed life that will never go deeper, as I mentioned last night, with people, relationships. It'll never be deeper or stronger than really our relationship is with God himself. And until that is something that we understand that. And so many times in ministry, I have people come in, I'd sit down and talk to them. And sometimes I got the picture almost of somebody that owns an auto repair business, and somebody comes, pushing their car into the auto repair place, and this couple gets out, after they push their car in, and they say, it's not running well. We don't know what's wrong with it. We think it needs a new paint job. So no, it might be the interior on it. The interior is just all trash, and all messed up, and the tires are worn, and the brakes. Well, actually, we got a number of things here, and you look at it though, and say, well, let me do a little check here, and then finally you go open the hood, and there's no engine. And you realize, without an engine, no matter, who cares how well you paint it? And how beautiful it is, and how great the interior is, and how much you've dressed it up, and all the the extras that you've got built into this thing, that the world spends so much time and energy on, but they don't have an engine. They don't have any driving power behind that makes it work for them. And that's the key. The first thing is the Spirit of God under the hood, realizing He's where we draw everything from. He's the one that things all connect to. That helps the thing run and run well. And so something to me that just hopefully that's driven home throughout this conference to all of us. Lord, you need to be King and Lord and Master and filling us and strengthening us. Another thing I like to stress a lot is that when I come and I'm talking to groups, I don't know you. I don't. When I'm looking at somebody, I don't know about your marriage. I don't know how often you're around or what your involvement in spiritual life or anything. I don't know anything. So, which is an advantage sometimes to me, because I can look at you and you're a mess, aren't you? No, I'm just kidding. No, I look at you and I don't know anybody, so I can just. Uh-oh, did I strike home? No, but it's just simply, oh, he's putting his eye, he's comforting. Oh, boy, I did strike home. No, but I mean, secondly, not only that relationship with the Lord, but secondly, be regularly a part of a fellowship. The body, sometimes people come out to things and that they really aren't connected. And if you've got a married couples ministry in the church, get plugged into it. Be a part of it. And because it's, conferences don't really last oftentimes much longer after the conference. But what it is that when you can continue it and you sustain it, that's the important thing, so much. And so I really strongly recommend that. And so here now as we get into this, and we start looking here at this session, next session we'll look at verse 25 of husbands, loving your wife. But here's we're told, wives, submit yourself unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, and so let the wives be under their own husbands in everything. And now we get into these two different people that we bring in. In comes the wife, she's just down. In comes the husband, and now we're going to talk about the marriage. And you don't have to be married very long to realize how different we are as men and women. Not just simply as people, which we're all very different, but even just between the sexes, on how women think and men think. They're really, God, I don't know whether he had a sense of humor or what was on his mind when he created men and women so different. But we were radically different in the sense of just, how we think and how we function. Not always the case, but pretty much so, I've noticed through the years. And the difference between them is it can be very confusing and sometimes very frustrating, sometimes humorous, sometimes all sorts of things. But, a man is somebody essentially that if his wife says, never mind, I'll do it myself, well, he will let her. And but a woman, on the other hand, she is somebody that when she actually says, never mind, I'll do it myself, and then he lets her, she gets mad. Now, a man, on the other hand, he is somebody that when she says, never mind, I'll do it myself, and then he lets her, and then she gets mad, then he will say, now what did I do? But a woman, on the other hand, is somebody, when she said, never mind, I'll do it myself, and then he lets her, and then she gets mad, and then he says, now what did I do? She will then say, well, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you. And God takes these two people and he puts them together and he says, now be happily married. It's kind of like, what were you thinking when you created us this way? And essentially God designed us that we need him to interpret for us. We need him, to lead and guide deliberately, to where, in order to function well and to be deeply in love. Now, we found ways sometimes to circuit that, and not to get into the whole social world out there and the political world and the moral world, but one of the interesting things is that there's a huge difference, obviously, between heterosexuality and homosexuality. Because essentially one of the things that's happening in heterosexuality is you got two entirely different beings and systems learning to operate together and to love and to care. And it's actually sometimes very challenging and difficult. But we found a way to short circuit that, in a sense, and that is that one of the things in homosexuality is you'd have two like systems that come together and, hey, I like you. We communicate. We understand each other with very little effort. They both have like systems, and without any working or any maturity or any depth, now they short circuit that whole thing and find out, wow, I guess I'm homosexual. No, you're just selfish. You just found somebody just like yourself, and requires very little effort to work things out, as well as you're in rebellion to God. But at any rate, here God looks now at a man and a woman, and he's going to tell us two things here that from the Bible's perspective are humanly utterly impossible. And that is that he tells the wife, I want you to submit yourself to your husband as unto the Lord. Impossible. We'll look at that in a moment. And then he tells the man, I want you to love your wife as Christ loved the church. And these things are impossible humanly. They cannot be done. Never have been done, humanly, in the sense that that sometimes we shorten it in just where it says, I submit. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible tells a woman, I want you to submit yourself to your husband as unto the Lord. I want you to submit to your husband as if he's the Lord himself. Well, hopefully a lot of people, when they get married and she looks at her husband and thinks, oh, the Lord gave him to me, he's wonderful, he's godly, he's the most wonderful man on the planet, and I dearly love him, of course I can submit to him. But it usually doesn't take a woman real long to discover, something? He's not the Lord. I didn't marry the Lord. He's very different, very different. And now, but only now to submit to him as if. That's what it says. It doesn't just say you define submission. It's defined for us. You submit to him as unto the Lord. And I said, well, I can't do that. She's not. Precisely. He then turns to the husband. He says, now you love your wife. I love my wife. But no, let's finish it. Love your wife as Christ loved the church. Now any honest human being will have said, well, that's impossible. Who could ever love a woman the way that Christ loved the church? There's no shadow of turning in his love. He's unchangeable. There's no variation in him at all. It's an absolute flawless, perfect love, consistent, never changes, no ups, no downs, and precisely. And the issue there, when somebody realizes, I cannot do that. Now, then is when now the Spirit of God is being brought in. And he says, well, I can. I can do both of those. I can help you, with these things. Well, first session here, and for some reason we can debate that all day long, but bottom line is that Paul begins with the woman, and he says to her before, a lot of women think, why, if you would talk to him first, God, if you could straighten him out first, it'd be so much easier to submit to him. If he loved me as Christ loved the church. Can we do verse 25 before verse 22? And Paul says, sorry, not going to do it that way. We're going to just really make it tough. But he says, wives, I want you to submit yourself unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. Now, a couple of things that are important to understand about this as we get into it is that these roles, these are essentially assigned roles. We already hopefully are talking to two people that are filled with the Spirit. They've come in and they sat down. They have a joyful heart. They've got a thankful heart. They've got a submissive heart. In terms of submitting to one another, esteeming each other is more important than themselves, that's done. That's settled in terms of there's no greater, no lesser, nobody more important, less important. It has nothing to do with that. These are operational roles there, within it, functional roles. In the sense, just like any time you have more than one person working together, you have roles that are required in order to continue the process. You look at a basketball team, a baseball team, a football team. Anytime there's a team, they've got roles. There may be somebody that they're the center, or somebody they're the quarterback, or somebody's the tight end, or somebody is there, whatever position they may have that is given on it. But they can't function without being a team. They don't just come to the huddle in the middle of the game and say, okay, I want to call the play. No, There's going to be one person that's assigned in that huddle, the quarterback who's going to call the play. Now, he maybe gets it over from the sideline that gets sent in, to him, on what the coach wants to do. But there's this whole pecking order, not of importance, just of operational roles to make it work, to make it go on. Any team, anything that's going on, any business, any relationship that is going on with that's how life functions within it. And so also in a marriage. And it has nothing to do with spirituality. It has nothing to do with importance. It has to do with structure and order. And it's interesting, 1 Corinthians 11:3 says, "But I would have you to know that I have every man as Christ. The head of woman is man, and the head of Christ is God." Even Jesus, when he was here, though he's the creator of the universe, when he came here, he was submissive to his Father. And he turns there in this life and in this world as we know it, Jesus operated in that. He looks at the woman, he says, "You will submit yourself unto your own husband." And then he also turns to the husband there and he says, "And you will be submissive to God." It's interesting. We have, of course, as we all know, the story in the garden when man sinned. And there the Lord, what he did with both man and woman is essentially there. They both fell, they both sinned. But he turned to the woman. And the word woman, as you are aware, I'm sure, simply means out of man. That there God, when he created woman, he put Adam to sleep. And out of his side, he goes and he takes out a rib. And he creates woman out of man. In there, Adam, when he wakes up, he says, "Behold, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh." It was the rest of him. Something was taken out of Adam. What he was like before this, we really don't know. All we do know is when he woke up, he realized, there's my other self. Something is now gone from me and is now over there in that body. And the completion of me. And now when, I think there's something, when a man would like to take his wife and hug her and pull her right inside of himself if he could, that's where she came from. Two should become one. And here, but he looks now at the wife when she sinned, he says, "You will now submit to your husband, essentially from whence you came." He then turned to Adam and he told, "Now Adam, you will submit from whence you came." And Adam came from the dust of the earth. And there, he told Adam, "Now you will submit to all the times, the seasons, the feasts, the famines, all the injustices of the world around you. And through the inconsistency of the seasons, through the feast, through the flood, through the famines, through the high times, all the thorns, all the thistles, all the rocks, all the, just trying, sometimes you come in, you just have an incredible crop, and sometimes it doesn't rain. And boy, you're just trying to eke it out and just trying to get, bread on your table, and you're trying to find out a way to do it through all of the inconsistencies of life, all the inconsistencies of seasons and things. Adam, you will learn to trust me. And then he looks at Eve, and now you will submit to that word from which you came, with all of his inconsistencies, his feasts, his famines, his highs, his lows, his times of where it's just wonderful, in times there to where he's dry and things are difficult and things and looking at her, and you will learn, young lady, to trust me with him and in those seasons. And the thing is God has designed marriage to where something that he's to not only the one that created it, he's not only the one that brings it together, but he's to be the one that maintains it together. He's the one that's to care for it constantly. In the Psalms it says, "Except the Lord build a house, they that build it labor in vain. Except the Lord keeps the city, the watchman waketh in vain. Vain you wake up in the morning, and in vain you stay up late at night, in vain you eat the bread of sorrows." Every marriage, no matter how great or strong or all the humanness about it, there's times and seasons for all of them. And sometimes, boy, you get up early in the morning, you work late at night, you put all you got into it, and sometimes, boy, you're eating the bread of sorrows. So life is tough, it's hard. And he said, but the Lord, he says, gives his beloved sleep. But he says, except the Lord there, he says, build the house. He's got to be the one that brings the house together. But he also said, except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh in vain. In other words, the Lord says, not only I created the house, I'm the maintainer of the house. I'm the one there that, we just have spent, our house, we haven't done anything to it for years and years. We kind of let it go. We've had kids in and out and grandkids and been living with us for time, and that kind of, we just did whatever all there is to do and carry on and things. But little by little, it's times. And one day we're looking at the house. Everything needs, the carpets are absolutely thrashed, and the kids and the grandkids and and everything, and the paint, and all the rooms. You don't realize on how it smudges and discolorations and the wall hangings, and take them off, and you look there and realize, boy, and we've just been kind of going through painting and doing all this to maintain it. It's one thing to get something, but then now the Lord is the one that also has to maintain it. And here are the roles, where he now looks at the wife, but he says to her, your role is to submit to your husband as unto the Lord. And like I said, it's not an issue of spirituality. It's not an issue there of importance. It's an issue there of just organization. It's an operational word. It has nothing to do with intelligence, competency, IQ, ability, none of that. God doesn't sit there with each marriage and say, something, you're sharper in this area, and you're better trained in this area, and you came from a family that kind of really just did all of this stuff well, and you just get it, and you're better than this one, and back and forth. So what we're going to do in this marriage, this is how yours is going to be operated, how it's going to function. Here's the role No. God gives here this general thing. First of all, based on if you're a male, this is who you are. If you're a female, which obviously we're having that question as well in our world today too. Now they're actually getting birth certificates that are left blank until the kid picks them. Are we crazy or what? Type of a thing. Something that all of human history has never had a problem figuring out. We can't figure out the most basic thing in the world. It says, that's a boy, or something there. That's no, you're not done it. Well, anyway. But here he looks there to the wife. He says, you will submit to your husband. Something of which, to tell you the truth, I'm actually, it's a challenge. Jean, she grew up in an incredible home. Her parents came to know the Lord and deeply loved the Lord. He was a doctor. He came from Mayo Clinic, very sharp and wonderful couple, and whatever they maybe been through early on in their marriage, I don't know, but all I know is they were in their mid-40s when she was born, and they just had settled in their love, their walk, their life. And Jean went through Christian grammar school and high school and college and just loved the Lord. They had a home at a place called Mount Hermon Conference Center, and she would work in the summers at the conference center there out in housekeeping and the popcorn machine and things as a little girl growing up, and just had this incredible Christian environment. Never rebelled, always loved the Word, always loved the Lord. And just incredible. Meantime, I'm kind of growing up on the other side of the tracks. I don't come to Christ till I'm as a junior in college. And here, when I come to the Lord, on one end, when I met her, I fell in love. But and we actually got engaged in 3 months. I realized I got to close this deal before they figure me out, or something. Then after though, we're really seriously dating. We would go out on dates, and she would tell me Bible stories. And all these people, I didn't even know they existed. I loved character studies. She ended up getting me a book, Edgar Meyer's Bible Story book, with all these that she grew up reading. And I loved it. There's a children's Bible story book, just reading all these characters. We go out, tell me another story, and said on it. But then all of a sudden, I kind of hit a wall and realized, something? I'll never catch up to her. In terms of her understanding of the Lord, her wisdom, her maturity. I was passionate about the Lord and things, and I was energetic, but it just came to wisdom that just comes through a walk with the Lord over time. I was so, I was in the dust, looking at her, and I got very intimidated, realized I'm supposed to be the head of this. And I'm supposed to be the leader of this thing. And I was very intimidated at the time. I'm going through college in business, and Bank of America actually had this incredible program that they were doing, trying to enlist business majors to come to work for them. And they gave me a very nice part-time job of about 20, 25 hours a week. And they let me work when I wanted. And with the hope that when I would graduate, I would consider the bank. And they were having a hard time recruiting because banking, it takes a while to work your way up through it, like maybe other careers. You can move faster. So anyways, I got this great job there, and some of you may be old enough, you remember Bank AmeriCard. And there was, before all the, now with MasterCard and Visa and all this, the forerunner of this. There was a fellow named R.C. Kohler. He worked for Bank of America. He was the vice president. And he devised this whole thing of their credit card, where, at the time before that, people, you had a Shell oil, a Shell, and you had a Mobil, and you had Exxon. If you only had a card for the specific company you bought gas, or you had a Sears card, or you had a May Company or Broadway or Bullock's, these were just department stores. But every business had its own credit check, its own application, its own collection department, its own authorization for everything, and their own billing. And this guy comes out and he said, "Look, we'll create the whole thing. We will, you apply, you get a Bank AmeriCard, but we will go to Sears, we will go to all these companies, say, look, if you will take our card, right now you're all losing money on your own, credit side of your business. It's a huge operation, maintaining it, collecting, and bad debt, and customer service. Your overhead on it, you don't make any money. We will do it for you. We will guarantee when that card is taken, you will get paid, and you can shut down that whole department. And we will run it. And we will and we will collect. We will go after there's a problem. We will authorize. All you do is just say, yeah, we'll take the card. And then you will give us a small percentage of every transaction. And you will actually make, which they did. So it just took off. And then out of that, and everybody now just, you don't have all those cards any longer. You got a MasterCard or a Visa or something, but they're all under that same umbrella. Well, the fellow that did this, I ended up getting a job. It was a 7-story building in Pasadena, right outside of his office, Kohler's office. And basically they had a huge massive floor of customer service, and any complaint that anybody had, that they would go through customer service. But people would find out who Kohler was, and some big businessman or whatever, and I don't want customer service, I want Kohler. I want him. So they would write a letter to him. Personal, I've got a problem with my account, or whatever it was. And so I am hired, all I did was his personal stuff. So when somebody wrote to him, he just had, here's the letter, fix it, and something, find out what happened and what it is, and write a letter, and I'll sign it, so on my letterhead. And so that's what I did. So I'm right, and well, he had a secretary, Mary, who was actually with him from day one when he's devising, planning, putting it together, all the meetings, and she was with him from the very beginning. Well, Kohler retires. And when he retires, the bank goes down to the Spring Street branch in L.A., which was the biggest branch for Bank of America in California. And they took a vice president from there, promoted him, and gave him this, new job over Bank of America. And one day he walks into the building. He'd never been in the card side of it. He's never been doing any of this. He'd been traditional banking, as all of his. So he's walking into this whole thing, obviously smart man, very capable man, but he didn't know, what's where's data processing, where's collections, where's customer service, where's authorization, who runs this, how's it done? He didn't know those things. So, but he just walks in one day, and there he is now meeting people, and you're over this. Oh, nice to meet you. And so he's starting to, get the ropes of what he's there for and who's what. Mary, on the other hand, she was sharp, really sharp. Brilliant, actually. She had been there through all of it. She understood not only how to run, she knew she was there with everybody, everything, knew every department, how they did it, how everything was resolved. She could have run it herself as well as Kohler, and ever could. Well, they'd come to this new guy and ask him, well, I don't need to look over Mary. Mary, how was it? And Mary would, and she all of a sudden, it was funny. I'm sitting there at my desk. Her desk was right across from mine. I'm watching her. And the next thing you know, she's coming alive. It's kind of like she's got people going to her now. And people would come by, hey, how's the new guy? Oh, man, you can't believe it. He got in the elevator and he went to data processing and he went up. Everybody knew it was down, or something in the bank. He doesn't know up from down. She had all these little things to where all of a sudden everything's coming to her and she's loving it. Behind his back, she's kind of not mocking him, but just all of their newfound power. And he's kind of figuring it out, and I'm watching. There's a little tension happening. And one day, his door opens. He asks Mary to come in, and she goes in. And a few minutes later, she comes out. And when she comes out, she goes over to her desk, pulls the drawer open, pulls out her purse, goes over, gets in the elevator, and she's gone. And you could tell whatever happened there was not comfortable. Well, he comes walking out behind, stands over, looking over customer service, puts his hand on my desk and stands there, just staring out, not saying anything. About a minute goes by or whatever, and finally I say, well, how are you today? Or how's everything? It's kind of like, what do you say? And he says, well, I'll tell you tomorrow. And I said, what's that? And what do you mean? And he said, well, I had to have a little talk with Mary. And he says, I think Mary feels that she should be running Bank of America. I think she feels that she's the one that should do it. She's really sharp. She's been around forever. She knows everything there is to know about it. And I think she has a conflict, with me running this thing. And I had to sit down with her and tell her that's not going to happen. I had to tell her that the bank is holding me accountable, not her. That this is my job, my responsibility. This is what I have to do. And so I told her that's not her job. But I also told her that there's nobody in the world that could help me do my job more than her. And she needed to decide if she wanted to assist me or if she wanted to control me. And so I told her to go home and think about it. And if she felt that she could help me and was willing to do that, I wanted her to stay. And but nobody could help me more than her. But if she felt she couldn't operate that way, then we needed to find something else for her. So I'll tell you tomorrow. We'll see tomorrow what we got. And incidentally, she did come back and changed woman. Changed. She and it worked out wonderful. But the thing was this guy is finally. I'm waiting for a while. I'm so excited. That something just rang so excited to me. I could hardly wait. I get on the phone. I call Jean. I tell Jean, I said, Jean, because she knew about the tension. I told her a little, the story of what was happening with Kohler and this new guy and her watching it and the suspense. Almost something's not going to work here. And so I call her and I said, well, I got to tell you this story. So I tell her what happened and this guy, and he took her in and he sat her down and he said, and she said, yeah, what do you, so? I said, well, I'm intimidated by you. I come to realize, the way you know the Lord, the way you know the Word, the way your maturity, in so many ways, it's way beyond me there. And yet I also know God has called me to lead. I know that. That is my job. And yet I get insecure because I don't know that I'll ever catch up with you, that I will ever be on par with where you are and your knowledge and your depth, that's in you. She says, yeah. And I said, well, here's the deal. What's that? And I said to her, I said, will you be my secretary? I said, because nobody could help me pull off life and ministry better than you. And she's, yeah, you idiot, and hung up. But anyway, but the thing is that both of us had to, because I knew God called me to do something that she actually had better equipment to do it than I did. And that's not at all inconsistent. I found particularly around the home many times the wife has far greater understanding. She's right in the hub of all this activity and all this stuff. Sees the things she sees and aware of, and she has a sensitivity to. She has so much, to operate, to help make it function and work well. Together, and yet at the same time, now he who comes in and out the door, out plowing the field or whatever else he's doing, and now he's trying to lead something, and she can be somebody there that behind the scenes can undermine it, can hurt it, rather than realizing, no, this is your job. This is what you are called to do, and I'm there to be your helpmate. I'm here to help you do this, and sometimes for a wife to learn what it is to really to submit to her husband, to really look and realize God says, I want you to submit to him. We, of course, then ended up getting married, and then from there we went off to England where we went to school for a year. And then when we came home, there I'm going to seminary for a while. And then we get connected with this little church, Calvary Chapel of Costa Mesa. We come down there. And then one thing leads to another. Chuck Smith asked me to come on his staff, and so I ended up coming on. The time Kay Smith, Chuck's wife, she had this little Bible study. And small little study there that she had with and with another gal that kind of helped, and just this very small group of women, and they ended up actually meeting in our home for it. But when they would give their home, they would have an assignment, have a Bible study, and then they would give an assignment for the women to do. Well, one time Jean comes, she's home and she's doing her Bible study assignment. And she says, I've got some questions I have to ask you that they've given us to ask our husband about marriage. And I'm supposed to, the assignment is, I'm supposed to just ask you the question and write down your answer. We're not supposed to discuss it. We're supposed to just simply, what did you say? And then we're going to discuss that at the women's study, when we all meet together. And so I said, okay, what are your questions? So she goes through, there's 5, 6, 7 questions. I don't remember how many. I don't even remember any of the questions until one of them came up, and the question was, am I submissive to you? And so she says, am I submissive to you? And I said, no. And so she says, come on, I got to do this homework, I started a thing, and don't mess with me on this thing, and I said, I'm sorry, what was the question? Am I submissive to you? No. And so she says, why are you doing this to me? And I said, she said, what do you mean I'm not submissive? I said, you just told me your instructions, we're not supposed to discuss it. You're just supposed to ask the question and write down. Well, we were not going to not discuss it. We were going to discuss that. Forget the study. So anyway, she said, how could you say that? How could you? And she looks at me, she says, when, we got married and you wanted to sell everything we owned and go to England, did I not do that? And then she starts, and then when we came back, and then you want to go here, did I not just, okay. And then when you actually, short of graduating, you leave because you come on, I say, okay, I'll do that. And she goes through this list after list after list of submissions that she had done. I didn't realize you women keep that list. You all have, when you submitted, didn't I? You got it. She's rattling these things off, and I said, wow, that's impressive. And I said, I'm sorry. What was the question? She says, am I submissive to you? I said, no. And she says, how can you say that? I said, is the question, am I obedient or am I submissive? She said, what's the difference? I said, all the difference in the world. Obedience is I ask you to do something and you do it, whether you may or may not agree, but you do it. Submission is there you agree to do it. And I said many of these things, I went back through them, that I said, this is what I believe we're to do. I don't think you agreed with me. I think because of the fact that you felt you were to quote unquote submit, you did it. But you struggled terribly. She looked at me. She's so honest, but she just looked at me. She blew her cover because when I go through my response, she says, how did you know that? Like, yeah, I do think you're an idiot, or something, and I don't know why you did this stuff. But I said that, you see that there's a huge, huge difference. One of which, I can ask somebody to sit down, and you can sit down, but you're still standing up on the inside. And I said, but submission is where I ask you to sit down. And you sit down and say, I'm with you. We're in this together. And that's spiritual. The natural side, everybody naturally has opinions. And hopefully in a marriage, you talk about these. You share these things. They are open. It's not something you just do what I say. That's not it at all. On that. And hopefully we've understood that by the previous study of communicating and loving and the joy. But where we also, though, realize that when it comes down to it, that there's a heart that says, I'm submitting to you. I'm in this. And because you can do things and not do it. I remember many, many years ago, heard something that I just couldn't stop laughing about on the things. It was after the Vietnamese War, many years ago. And some years after that, a fella, he is reflecting on his time, over in Vietnam, and Army guy, and he's reflecting on it, and he talks about how where they were actually in Hanoi, in an area where it was there. Well, they're huge, gigantic base, the U.S. base, and they could actually live off base if they wanted. And so a bunch of them got together and just kind of pooled their money because they could get a place for very, very inexpensively, and they could, and they could hire, somebody to cook for them and things. So they got this little Vietnamese houseboy, and they're there and living there off base and got their own thing. But there's no radio or TV or anything to kind of entertain them with it all. And so they're sitting there, and one time this kid, Vietnamese kid, he comes there and he's to do his job, but out of boredom. They just thought, let's just have fun with this kid. So they went and they took a bunch of tacks. And out on the step outside, when he would come, he would take off his little flip-flops, leave them on the step while he comes in to do his work and his chores. One of them snuck out, took a hammer, and nailed down, his little flip-flops to the step. And they're sitting there out in a gap, paying like they're not paying attention, don't know. And he's done with his job. He goes, and they're looking out the window, watching him at the door. As he goes to put his flip-flops on, and he goes to put it there, he stares at it for a minute, looks around, fiddles with it, wonders, well, comes back in the house, gets a hammer, comes there, pries them all up, takes the tacks, puts them away, and puts the hammer away, goes out, puts on his flip-flops, and on he goes. So they thought it'd be funny and entertaining, and just kind of, that didn't go anywhere. The next day, out of boredom, now, they decide, they go and get Vaseline. And they put Vaseline on all the door handles, that around. And so he's coming in to do his job and clean and cook and do the laundry. But all the doors, he comes in, he can't get a grip. And so he looks around. What is this? Meantime, they're reading the paper, looking to watch it, trying to think it's funny. Well, he's no show of thought or emotion, anything. He just goes over, gets some soap and water, cleans it all up, and washes it all down, puts it all away, goes about his chores. Whatever. Third day, out of desperation, frustrated. This is not, we're going to find some in it. They go to elaborate way. They rigged up a bucket of soap and water, right? Water and flour. Mixed water and flour and put it in a bucket over the door. So when the door opened, it just dumped, and it worked perfect. The kid walks in, opens the door, whole bucket empties with flour and water all over him, and he's startled and looks around. They're sitting there like don't see, don't hear, nothing whatsoever. He just startled. He looks around, looks up, figures it out, cleans it all up, puts everything away without any at all. Does his job, gets the food ready, does the laundry, cleans the house, and he's leaving there thinking, something, that kid's not going to come back. He's going to quit on us. He's a great kid. We don't not want to. So they said, we got to stop this. So before he leaves, they bring him over and they said, look, we're sorry. We've been thought it would be funny what we did, and you're such a great worker. Please don't quit. We're sorry. We won't do this anymore. And so he looks at them. He says, so no more naily shoes to the step. No more naily shoes to the step. And he says, no more put Vaseline on door handle. No more Vaseline on the door handle. And he says, no more bucket of warm flour. He says, no more bucket of warm flour. And he says, well, good. Then me no more spitty in the soup. But when I heard that, I thought, see, a lot of times people, they can just go right on ahead and do whatever they got to do. Whatever it is, but meantime, they can be spitting in the soup all the time. I think a lot of women, you go to Bible study, you got your women's prayer groups, every church has them, they meet together, and I know we're thick, I know we're slow, but we know what goes on. We know you all get together, and you're praying about us and how tough it is to live with us and raise our kids and be nice to us. And honey, we're praying for you. We know I'm married to an idiot too. I know what you're dealing with. And we know how we figured it out. We know what goes on. But when somebody can really look there and say, Lord, to be able to submit as unto him, there to where, because a lot of times you can be doing things, you're carrying on, but in the process, you're spitting in the soup. It's not as unto the Lord. It's not as unto him that this is happening. And you see it because the heart of submission is when somebody looks and realizes this is their job. And we're both learning two jobs we've never done ever before. Me submitting to you and you leading me. Neither one of them are easy. And when somebody is doing that, that means that the wife is giving her husband the opportunity to succeed or fail with her full support. She's there at his side. And, many wives, anytime a husband is doing something, they challenge it. And not that you don't discuss, you do. You should be able to talk and share, but there's that point to where, all right, this is your job. But if you challenge it, to me, it's almost like if you're walking down, you're going somewhere together, and you're walking down a path, and there's something as you're walking down, the husband, you're going over here somewhere, and the husband says, something, I know a shortcut. And the wife said, wait a minute, there's a little path. You see, there's a nice little pathway here. In fact, see that little sign there, to destination, that goes there. And I know, but there's a shortcut. Can't you can see it over there? Yeah, I know a shortcut. And no. Just go the path. No. Take a shortcut. And now you got a problem. Now what are you going to do with it? And at that point, the man says, I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. Oh, another thing that's interesting to me. When God created us, he created us, I already said, very, very different. But one of the things that he created in us, men, that women don't have. And that is that when God created a man, again, women do not have this. They just don't. They don't get it. But men do. And that is that men have an inbuilt GPS system. We don't need maps. We don't need directions. We can just sense it. And stuff. Where women, you need all this little instructions to do everything. We can say, I know where I'm going. And so just leave me alone. I know where I'm going. And he said, well, then why do we drive by that same gas station 4 times from 3 different directions? So leave me alone. Just quit. You're conflicting with the whole GPS system, trying to get the way. See, the conflict in the car is messing me up. Be quiet. But on men, we have this way something about us that we think we can figure a lot of stuff out by ourselves. Sorry, it's just the facts. And where women aren't oftentimes quite that way. And now you've got a system, because now the man says, well, I'm going this way. And so he steps off the path. And she says, it's dirty. He says, come on. A little dust isn't going to hurt anybody. Come on. She says, no. I'm staying here. She's got her little lily white outfit and little white shoes and her little umbrella. And she says, no, I'm not going. You're going to be sorry. I'm going. Well, now you've got a problem. Now does he go back? Or does he go? He decides, now I have to prove something. So now he goes out there. Next thing you know, it's muddy. Not just dirty, it's muddy. He's stepping through. And then, it's up to his knees, as he's going through this. And she said, what are you doing, you idiot? Can't you see? You see that it even says quicksand. Can you read that sign out there? Quicksand. And now the guy, he's there within him. I can't go back. If I go back, I'll be henpecked the rest of my life. I will forever and ever, anytime I make a decision, don't you remember the quicksand? Do we need to go over that again? Yeah. And there's something in our own insecurity or struggles there in life where we will now force it. We will reach down and grab some of that mud or quicksand. We will actually eat it and look back at you and say, this is fudge, woman. This is fudge in your midst. We will try to make it something different than it is, because we have to make it. Because now our right to lead is now being compromised in our mind. And but when he sometimes, so he can't go back so often, has to struggle with it. But when a woman can look there at her husband and be able to say, well, I'm just your helpmate. God's called you to lead. Now there's steps over there, but that's your decision. I'm just glad I don't have to answer for it. But I do want you to know I'm with you. Let's go. Now when that guy goes off, and he's next thing you know, he's looking there, and it is dusty, it is muddy. Now there's something within him that he can do something, and he's not risking at all his headship, his leadership, his responsibility to lead, or how to do it. She gave that to him. This is your job, that's not mine. I'm trying to learn what it is to submit, and you're trying to learn how to lead. I'm having enough trouble with my job. I'm sure yours is tough too, but I'm with you. You can always, I don't know of a marriage, we've been married 50 years next month, I don't know of a marriage that hasn't washed a lot of mud off. That hasn't gone back and said, boy, we wish we didn't do that, or we should have done that. I was at the conference a couple years ago, and there's about 1,000 pastors, and there's a couple of us sitting up on a panel. And one of the pastors out there, he asked, he said, well, you could go back 40 years and tell yourself, something. What would you tell yourself? I just said, buy Apple. But anyway, I had Apple stock, some of it years ago. Man, I sold it when I made $50 on it, totaled $50. But anyway, but of all the decisions, all the things, all the opportunities, all the things in life of which you're just going through with it, if you could go back, and repick your lottery numbers, or so to speak. But here, when you look and realize, no, God, He's not interested in any of that. He's interested in teaching a man to lead and a wife to submit. That is when a marriage, when you get down 30, 40, 50 years and you see something, and you've got two people that love the Lord and they love each other and they've learned these things. They're far richer than the person that just made that ultimately, well, I'm glad we took this path. I'm glad you listened to me there. Well, I'm glad you listened to me. Well, I won this one. That couple doesn't have much. But the two that have learned and have this, and they've learned the heart and the behavior. Because like you say, every marriage you wash some things off. And when somebody realizes, it's interesting, there's an old statement that virtually I'm sure everybody has heard, that it basically simply goes, behind every successful man is his dog. Is a woman. Statements like that don't last for generations if there isn't truth to it. They hang around because the fact that you would look, and when you see a man and realize that the power of influence, I believe, to me, there's two roles in the Bible. Leadership and role and influence, they're very different. I don't believe personally there's a lesser or a greater. They require one another to succeed. They complement one another. And when they don't work well together, they will not succeed. You look there at you look at an Esther and what she did. You look at an Abigail, you look at a Sarah. And you see some incredibly wonderful women there, in the Bible that had an unbelievable, influence on history. And then you see the Jezebels that destroyed kingdoms by their influence, the way that they exercised it. But when there is somebody there that they look and realize the power, when a woman realizes the power of influence, realizes she is more powerful influencing than she is attempting to lead. And when she could look there and say, God, make me an influencer. I'm one of these, I look at my mothers in heaven and my grandmother and my mother-in-laws in heaven, unbelievably godly women. I would venture to say more so even than my father and my father-in-law, though they were very godly. But the women were unbelievable. And they're in their depth, but they were very submissive wives. And when somebody realized that and carries it out, there is a fellow, Thomas Wheeler. He's executive officer, CEO of Massachusetts Mutual Life Insurance Company, and he tells a story on himself. Speaking at a convention, he talking something, whatever, brought up on marriage. But he one time he had went out and bought this new beautiful luxury car. He and his wife are out for a drive out in the country, and he looks down and he realizes there's a little light on that he's about out of fuel. And he realized, oh no, I don't know where. He's panicked. And he's driving along looking anywhere, and finally he sees a little one-pump podunk gas station. He goes in, and sure enough, they're open. And he goes into this gas station, he goes in, and he's in there, gives him some money, and comes out, there. And when he comes out, this is back in the days when somebody would wash your windows and check your oil and things. And he comes out, and here's a guy, washing the window. But he and his wife, this guy and his wife are chatting away. And they get to talking, and they seem to be having quite a things, but he's distracted in something else he's doing. And so he ends up paying for the gas, and they drive off, and he turns to his wife. He says, that was quite an interesting conversation you had, with that fellow there. And what was that all about? And she said, we wouldn't believe it. We started talking and looking at each other, and we felt we knew each other. And sure enough, it came out, we went to school together, and not only that, we went on a date one time. And she said it was incredible. Well, here he is, CEO of Massachusetts Mutual, beautiful life, car, luxury. He's driving down the road, and he said, I said the stupidest thing a man ever said in his life. I turned to my wife, and I said, well, I'll bet you're glad you married me instead of him. Here's this guy, a window washer at a podunk gas station. She said, well, I'll bet. And he realized the moment he said it, that was not smart. But he says, it's quiet for a moment. And his wife comes back, she says, well, the way I look at it, if I had married him instead of you, he would be CEO of Massachusetts Mutual, and you'd be pumping glass. There's a woman who knows the power of submission. Everyone who realizes there, that when she really, Lord, teach me how to be that woman. And there to be alongside, and that to say, you have your job. And it's going to take everything of God in you to do it, and I have mine, and it's going to take everything of God in me to do mine. And so submission is not simply a behavior. It's deeper than that. It's a heart. And many women, sometimes my heart goes out to them because I think they love the Lord and they're wonderful, but at the same time, they feel they haven't got Ephesians 5:22 down yet, in the heart of it, the spirit of it. And now I know maybe a lot of you husbands say, well, I'm really glad she needed this. Well, we do have a session coming up in a few minutes, verse 25, that does wonderfully follow this. So don't get too excited, because I'm going to bash you to death next. No, I'm just kidding. So what is there? We'll take a break, and
Amen.